So it's Friday afternoon. Hopefully I will vlog a semi-productive weekend vlog, and throughout the vlog I will also be trying to respond to questions that were sent in as per the Q&A video. Originally I tried to sit down and film a Q&A video, but it just felt like such a narcissistic activity. You know, you ask people to send you questions about yourself and then you proceed to film a 10-minute video of yourself talking about yourself. So that felt awkward to me, so at least today I will be showing you what I'm doing and also answering questions. I don't know if that makes it any better. First question, what is your ethnicity/racial background? This is actually really interesting because like throughout my life, I think some people are like, wow, like she's very obviously Chinese, and some people are like, she's kind of racially ambiguous. I'm like kind of tall for an Asian girl, so maybe that throws people off. I don't speak Mandarin or Cantonese or any Chinese dialect, and like culturally I'm pretty white. I was raised in a very like small hick town. I think I was like the only Asian person in my elementary school. So anyways, answer to the question is I am Chinese. I was born in Kunming, China, and yeah. Good morning. It is Saturday morning. I slept in quite a bit. Feels amazing. And second question I'm going to answer is, what school do I go to? I don't really try to actively advertise what school I go to for privacy reasons. And you know, if I was to have a crazy internet stalker that came to murder me, I would at least like them to be a dedicated stalker, you know, someone who watched all of my videos, someone who followed me on both my Instagram, because I have actually explicitly mentioned the school in one of my videos, and I have one Instagram post between my two accounts where I am sitting on the sign of the school that I got accepted into. So yeah, hopefully you were paying attention to those last few clips. How do you manage self-care when in medical school? I think there's two really easy strategies for this. One is to plan self-care related things with other med student friends. Two, plan self-care related things with other non-medical student friends. Alright, so I am at school because literally nothing was happening at home. I effectively wasted essentially the last 4 hours, and now I feel like a bag of poop, but hopefully I can make up for it and actually get something done this evening. Also, I got a steak for dinner, which I'm super happy to eat. Basically, I'm running a half marathon tomorrow, and last time I ate a steak for dinner before running, and it really helped because it's kind of like the protein releases energy slowly. That's the theory that I heard. I haven't looked into it. I don't know anything about nutrition, but it felt really good, so hopefully it works again this time. Next question, where do I feel like I'm lagging behind in comparison to my peers? After reflecting, I would say I'm lacking in life experience just because I'm younger than so many of the people in my class. Like, there's people in this class that have master's degrees, PhDs, background in healthcare, either nursing, pharmacy, dentistry, you name it. And so for these people, I think they have the advantage of knowing what a patient interaction is truly like when you're in the field, and they have like this top-down understanding, whereas for me it's very like bottom-up, and I have difficulty sometimes integrating all this knowledge into a clinical picture. Okay, next question is on how I take notes and how I study. I have a few videos relating to this, so I'll link them down below, but basically the shorthand version is during lecture I basically transcribe everything that is being said or that is presented on the lecture slides. This is not a very active form of learning, but it's so fast and my brain cannot keep up. So I don't really have time to think about what's being said. I just kind of write it down so I have it. And then I go home and I write everything out by hand. During this time, I'm pretty diligent to make sure that everything I write out, I understand. And I'll do like side readings or side Google searches to accommodate my understanding as necessary. After I've written everything out by hand, I usually leave it for a week or so, and then I come back to it and I make Anki cards out of these readings. So this just like moves everything into the long-term memory part of the brain. And then during this time as well, I'll also try to make diagrams and trees and whatever, like conceptual drawings and things that summarize and integrate a series of lectures that are related, and this kind of just helps me make connections and see patterns and helps me better understand and remember things. And then when I study, I go through these Anki cards and then I look at my sort of synthesis of lectures that are on those like handwritten iPad diagrams and flowcharts. And if something isn't clear to me or I don't really remember a concept that's mentioned on those flowcharts, I'll refer back to my handwritten or typed notes. So yeah, that's kind of how I do it, but you kind of have to just figure out what works for you. So when I go through Anki cards, I read the prompt. So then I click show answer, and then we go through. Yes, I mentioned the airways branching. Also, side note, always put in diagrams if there's like any way they're relevant, because your brain will remember these a lot better than just like a bunch of text. Respiratory distress syndrome. Okay, I have no idea, so show answer. Okay, so now I'm just going to write this down and make sure I understand what I am telling myself. So you may have noticed there's no diagram here, and a diagram would be really helpful for remembering this. So I'm going to make one. So now I have this image of respiratory distress in the newborn. He's blue because he's cyanotic. He's grunting because he's trying to keep air in his lungs. He's breathing this little cloud, so he's tachypneic. Tachypnic, however you say it. You can see his retractions by his ribs. His arms and legs are kind of skinny because he's a preemie, and that's a risk factor. And then he's hooked up to this monitor showing hypoxia and hypercapnia. So I'm just going to screenshot this, and then I'm going to airdrop it to my laptop. Okay, so the image has popped up, and I'm just going to copy that, and then I'm going to paste this in the answers. So now this question pops up, and now when I go to answer this question, I just think of the blue premature baby that I just drew.
So risk factors is being premature for respiratory distress syndrome, and then how it presents: you have tachypnea, you have grunting, you have hypercapnia, you have hypoxia, you have retractions, and there was one more. I'm just thinking back to my picture. So he's hooked up to the monitor, he had the retractions on his chest, tachypnea because he's breathing heavy. Oh, he's blue, so he's also cyanotic.
Alright, so it's 10:30, my throat is kind of sore from talking to myself all night. That's another thing I do when I'm trying to learn stuff. Yeah, so I'm gonna head home and hopefully get a decent night's sleep before running this half marathon thing that I signed up for. Just got home and figured out where I left my headphones. Yep, I put them through the wash. Okay, you are not going to believe this. These headphones still work. I am so stoked. This is also a message from the universe saying that I do not deserve AirPods. Alright, let's answer one more question before heading to bed tonight. It is, what got you interested in medicine, and did you have a backup plan just in case? So I feel like a lot of people, when they tell the story of how I chose medicine, their story is very interesting, it's very life-changing. Either they had a very severe illness or someone they loved, someone close to them was very sick, and they were like, wow, I want to be part of that improvement. That didn't quite happen to me. It's not like a crazy story with lots of revelation. I saw an online simulator where you could perform surgeries, basically virtual surgeries by a click of a mouse. And I went through all the surgeries this website had to offer. I thought it was super cool, and then that was like fun. I did that for a few afternoons on the computer and never thought about it again. And then one day I was on a hike with my mom, and she was saying, have you thought a bit more about what you want to do when you grow up? And I was like, what are good jobs? Very vague, you know, like 13, 14-year-old me, what's a good job? And my mom listed many things and many benefits of different jobs, but one of the things that came up was being a doctor. I was like, huh, never really made the connection, but I really liked doing those virtual surgeries. I really liked looking at the patient x-rays and like speaking to the patient virtually and then cutting them open and then seeing them post-op and like seeing them totally recovered. So I thought about that a bit more, and then throughout high school I actually really loved science. I really loved biology, physics, chemistry, and by the end of high school I was pretty certain I wanted to pursue medical school. So that's sort of when I started volunteering in medically related things. So yes, that is the long-winded story of how I chose medicine. In terms of a backup plan, Honestly, I didn't have a backup plan. I applied to one medical school, my top choice, in second year, and I got in right away, so that was after third year. But my plan was basically to use that as a practice round, apply to my first choice university, get familiar with the interview process and the application process. Next year, I was going to apply for every single medical school in the country that I was eligible for, in hopes that at least one of them would accept me. And I had very low self-esteem. I thought, like, there's no way I would get in the first time, and there's probably a good chance I won't get in even after applying to every single medical school. So third round, my plan was to apply internationally, basically to any medical school that had a decent rate of me being able to return to Canada to finish my training, plus that would accept a Canadian student. And then I thought, if all three of those fail, I would probably just stick to the academic route and do like a master's, PhD, and become a professor. Yeah, I'm very glad the whole med school thing worked out. Anyways, that was very chatty and rambly. I'm gonna go to bed now, and I will see you tomorrow. Good morning. Today's the day of the half marathon. So I ran 20 kilometers today with my wonderful friend Jennifer. Have you ever failed a course while being in pre-med? Personally, I have not, but I've certainly done poorly on assignments, and I've done poorly on exams that were worth major chunks of course. Yeah, no, I've never failed like a full-on course. That being said, didn't really set myself up for failure, so if a course was super hard or I just wasn't ready to take it, I would drop it and switch it for a different course. Or I would like move it to a semester that wasn't as heavy so that I could focus on the really hard course. And even if you do fail a course, I don't think it's the end of the world. You can 100% retake courses. At the end of the day, one course isn't going to like ruin your GPA as long as you redo it and you get a better mark than a fail. Good morning, it is 5:30 a.m. and I'm at school. You know, it's Monday, back at it. Next question, do you ever face imposter syndrome? So I looked up the definition of imposter syndrome, and apparently it is a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. So short answer, no, I don't feel like I ever have imposter syndrome. That being said, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 100% normal in medical school to feel like you're behind, or you don't know as much as your peers, or you don't pick up concepts as quickly as others, and I'm 100% in that boat. Just because I don't have imposter syndrome doesn't mean I feel like I'm crushing it at med school. I feel painfully average, which is fine, like whatever. But I don't feel like I'm a fraud, or I don't deserve to be here, or I'm like the bottom of the barrel in terms of med students. All right, next question. How do you study for long periods of time? Honestly, I think breaks are super important, so I like to use the Pomodoro technique. You study for 25 minutes and then you rest for 5, or I like to do like task-specific study, so I'll finish a lecture or I'll finish like an assignment, and then I'll take a 5 to 15 minute break and then just jump back into things. I don't think it's healthy to try and go hard for like 8 hours. Your brain just can't do it. It needs a break, so yeah. Good morning, it's Tuesday morning and I just got to the hospital. I've got clinical skills today and we're learning how to do sensitive exams. So I think first we have a breast exam and then after that we'll do the pelvic exam. So I'm home from my clinical skills and today we did the breast and pelvic exam. I was a bit worried going in that it was going to be super awkward and like I wouldn't know what to do, but it turns out the patients that were teaching us were amazing. They were just so comfortable with allowing us to perform this exam, and then they gave like live feedback as we're doing it, just sort of like maybe increase the pressure here or like don't push so hard here, which was so helpful. Next question, how do you stay motivated to be productive every day? Well, it's an illusion because I'm not particularly motivated and I'm not particularly productive in my own reflective opinion of myself. But that being said, I think accountability and working with other people is really helpful. So just saying, hey, let's study together for a couple hours tomorrow. Then you study together and you're kind of committed to being productive for that period of time. And I think, unfortunately, I am very extrinsically motivated, so like deadlines and fear motivate me more so than just me wanting to do well for myself. Last question, do I know what I want to do after medical school? I presume this person is getting at specialty. Yeah, I think it's too early to say. I think ask me again after third year when I've done all my rotations through all the medical specialties. I think certainly like this early on, a person can have an inclination one way or another, but yeah, all shall be revealed in time to both you and myself. I certainly have like different interests, but even like in the academic setting as things come up, I find them incredibly interesting. For example, yesterday we did a pelvic and breast exam, and pelvic exam would be something you'd see a lot of in family practice, but also if you did obstetrics and gynecology, and I thought it was really interesting. So yeah, it really could go any which way. Like right now we just started learning about ECGs and I'm like, wow, cardiology is actually like really interesting. I like how technical and mechanical and kind of like physics based the heart is, but also the kidney is my favorite organ, so things could kind of swing any which way. Anyways, that brings us to the end of this video vlog Q&A thing. Hopefully I answered some of your burning questions without being too self-indulgent. Yeah, and I will be back with another video soon-ish.